Welcome back to the library. In today's video, we're diving into the history of one of World of Warcraft's coziest and most charming zones, and that is Dun Morogh. This snow-covered and tranquil region, nestled in the heart of the Khaz Modan mountains, stands as one of the most welcoming zones in World of Warcraft, serving as the starting point for the countless Dwarven and Gnomish adventurers. Its roads have been travelled by many of Azeroth's heroes, but beyond the skirmishes with vengeful ice trolls and the occasional dash to escape hungry bears, Dun Morogh holds a deep and intricate lore. The story of Dun Morogh traces its roots back to some of the oldest legends in the world of Azeroth. Today we recognise it as the homeland of the Dwarves and the Gnomes.
Blah 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 blah. Time to move on.
But this snowy expanse wasn't always their domain. To truly understand how these stout and often short-tempered folk came to settle in these frozen lands, we need to start at the very beginning of their remarkable journey. And stay with me on this one, it all comes together quite nicely. Over 150,000 years ago, the Pantheon of Order, a group of god-like beings known as the Titans, roamed the cosmos on their divine mission to shape and organise worlds. Drawn to a quiet corner of the universe, they discovered Azeroth, a planet harbouring a dormant world soul, a vast reservoir of energy capable of awakening as a Titan, much like those who made up the Pantheon themselves. However, Azeroth was infested by the old gods, malevolent entities sent by the Void to corrupt the world soul. These beings had established the Black Empire, commanding armies of monstrous creatures and insectoids to spread their corruption. To combat this threat, the Titans created an army of races known as the Titanforged to wage war against the old gods and their Black Empire. 9 of the most powerful Titanforged were chosen as leaders. Known as the Titan Keepers, their job was to guide the races such as the Tol'vir, the Mogu, and Iron Vrykul. Among the many Titanforged races, 3 of them are crucial to the tale of Dun Morogh: the Troggs, the Earthen, and the Mechagnomes. These races would go on to shape Azeroth's history and play a pivotal role in the story of this snowy region. Let's shift our focus to the core of Dun Morogh's story. The Troggs, brutish and misshapen, played an unexpectedly important role. These creatures were the first of the Titanforged races, created by the Keepers in Uldaman's Forge of Wills. However, they were deemed failures, flawed prototypes, and were eventually replaced by the more refined Earthen, beings of living stone designed to shape Azeroth's mountains and subterranean regions, and the Mechagnomes, crafted by the Keeper Mimron to maintain the Keeper's machinery. While these creations succeeded in aiding the Titans in ordering Azeroth, the Troggs remained a lingering problem. Unable to destroy their defective creations, the Keepers sealed the Troggs in the Vault of Uldaman, constructed by the giantess Ionia. Though some escaped, most remained in stasis for thousands of years, while the Earthen and the Mechagnomes continued their noble work. Yet their story took a much darker turn with the rise of Loken, a trusted keeper whose betrayal would forever alter Azeroth's history. Around 20,000 years ago, Loken, corrupted by the old god Yogg-Saron, accidentally killed Sif, the wife of his brother Thorim. To cover his crime, he framed Arngrim, the Frost Giant King, sparking a war. Loken then created armies through the Forge of Wills to restore order, unaware that Yogg-Saron had tainted the Forge with the Curse of Flesh. This affliction would transform the Titanforged, such as the Earthen, the Vrykul, and the Mechagnomes, into mortal beings of flesh and blood, altering their destinies forever. Loken's corruption deepened as he killed fellow Keeper Mimron, subdued Hodir and Freya, and manipulated Helya into imprisoning Odin. With Ra missing and the others incapacitated, only 2 remained. Tia and Arcadus remained uncorrupted. Alongside their giantess friend Ionia and a group of Earthen, Mechagnomes and Vrykul, they fled south with the Discs of Norgannon, an artifact detailing Azeroth's history, in hope they could uncover the full scope of Loken's betrayal. Enraged, Loken sent the monstrous Cathraxi, servants of the old gods, to hunt them down. In a heroic stand, Tia sacrificed himself to protect his companions, ensuring that the discs and the truth escaped Loken's grasp. This significant moment would set the stage for the events that would follow, including the stories rooted in the snowy peaks of Dun Morogh. After Tia's sacrifice, Arcadus and Ionia fled to Uldaman, expanding the site to protect the Discs of Norgannon. They vowed to safeguard the artifact at all costs. But over time, some of the accompanying Earthen began to show signs of the curse of flesh, their rocky forms softening. To ease their fears, Arcadus placed the afflicted into hibernation, promising them that a cure would one day be found. Many Earthen were sealed within Uldaman, while others stayed awake alongside the Mechagnomes to guard the site. Arcadus and Ionea eventually retreated to Uldaman's deepest chambers, devoting themselves to trying to find a cure. After years of research, they too entered hibernation, leaving the Mechagnomes and remaining Earthen to maintain the facility. 10,000 years later, the Great Sundering shattered Azeroth, causing the remaining Earthen to feel the planet's pain. They tunneled deeper into Uldaman and sealed themselves in hibernation. Only the Mechagnomes remained awake, and over the next 7,000 years, they slowly succumbed to the curse of flesh, transforming them into the beings we now know as the Gnomes. Abandoning Uldaman, the Gnomes sought refuge in the nearby mountains, leaving behind a single Mechagnome. For the next 500 years, this lone Mechagnome attempted to maintain Uldaman as it fell into disrepair. Eventually, she transformed into a gnome herself. But in her dying breath, she freed the hibernating Earthen. However, those who awakened were no longer Earthen. The curse of flesh had turned them into dwarves. Like the gnomes before them, dwarves left Uldaman to settle in the nearby mountains. Over time, both the gnomes and the dwarves gradually lost their connection to their Titan origins, forgetting the knowledge of who they once were. Drawn by the safety and marvels of deep places, dwarves established a vast kingdom beneath the tallest mountain in the land. They named this realm Modan, meaning Mountain of Khaz, all in honour of the Titan shaper, Khaz. At the heart of their new kingdom, they constructed a grand altar to their Titan creator, building a mighty forge within the mountain's core. The city that then grew around this forge would forever be known as Ironforge. Inherently captivated by the art of shaping stone and gems, dwarves delved into the surrounding mountains, mining for precious minerals and uncovering the treasures hidden deep within the earth. As their influence expanded across Modan, dwarves stumbled upon another remarkable race, the gnomes. Fascinated by the gnomes' advanced technological expertise and feeling a deep kinship with these inventive beings, the dwarves assisted them in constructing a city of their own. Just west of Ironforge, the gnomes established the city of Gnomeregan. Perched high in their mountain strongholds, the dwarves thrived in Ironforge, while the gnomes tinkered away in their subterranean workshops within Gnomeregan, drawing upon the abundant riches and resources of their mountainous homeland. Now, there's a certain irony in calling this land a homeland. While the dwarves and the gnomes settled here and built prosperous lives, another word for this story that might be more fitting to what actually happened is conquered. And as with most stories throughout history, where there is a victor, there must also be the vanquished, and in the case of Dun Morogh, those who were displaced from their native homeland were the Ice Trolls. Stepping back in time, we know that ancient Kalimdor was once dominated by the mighty troll empires. Across the vast expanse of the continent, the trolls reigned supreme, with their influence divided among the Amani Empire, the Gurabashi, the Zandalari, the Dark Trolls, and then finally the Drakari, who controlled the northern reaches of ancient Kalimdor. The Drakari were further divided into two tribes, the Frostmane and the Winteraxe. While little is known about the history of these two tribes, it is clear that their influence once spread far and wide. However, the Great Sundering, which shattered ancient Kalimdor, left much of the Drakari Empire in ruins. The tribes were scattered, with the Winteraxe finding themselves in the Alterac Mountains and the Frostmane trolls finding themselves in the snowy peaks of Dun Morogh, both now cut off from their Drakari kin in Northrend. Separated, the Frostmane trolls carved out their own existence in the snow-covered mountains and endured for thousands of years. Their isolated survival continued uninterrupted until the arrival of the Short People.
Watch your back.
Since that time, the Frostmane trolls have been locked in an unending conflict with the dwarves, battling over the land they once called home. To the outside world, the dwarves of Dun Morogh appeared to be an unstoppable force, yet within their kingdom, change was on the horizon. For many years, the Dwarven kingdom of Ironforge thrived under the rule of High King Modan. Trade agreements and alliances with the northern human kingdoms brought immense wealth, funding grand projects in Modan like the Stone Wrought Dam. However, despite its prosperity, Ironforge was far from peaceful. Their society expanded beyond what their mountain city could sustain, and tensions were brewing between its three dominant clans: the Bronzebeards, the Wildhammers, and the Dark Irons. The Bronzebeard clan, led by Thane Modan Bronzebeard, maintained strong ties to High King Anvilmar and served as the defenders of Ironforge Mountain. The Wildhammer clan, ruled by Thane Cardros Wildhammer, lived in the surrounding foothills and crags, striving for greater influence within the city. And meanwhile, the Dark Iron clan, under the leadership of sorcerer Thane Thorisan, dwelled in the mountain's deepest recesses, plotting against both the Bronzebeards and the Wildhammers. The fragile peace between the three clans crumbled upon the death of High King Anvilmar. He died from old age, and it plunged Ironforge into a brutal civil war. After years of conflict, the Bronzebeards, with their superior army, emerged victorious. The defeated Wildhammers and Dark Irons were banished from the mountain. The Wildhammers established their own kingdom in Grim Batol, while the Dark Irons retreated to the Red Ridge Mountains, where Thorisan secretly plotted his revenge. Seeking to dominate all of Khaz Modan, Thorisan and his sorceress wife, Modgud, launched a two-pronged assault. Thorisan attacked Ironforge, while Modgud laid siege to Grim Batol. The Dark Irons nearly succeeded, but Modan and Cardros rallied their forces and repelled the invaders. Modgud was killed in the defence of Grim Batol, forcing the Dark Irons to retreat, while Thorisan himself fled after his forces were defeated. With the newfound alliance, the Bronzebeards and the Wildhammers marched south to eliminate the Dark Irons. Desperate, Thorisan summoned a powerful ally to turn the tide, but inadvertently unleashed Ragnaros, the Fire Lord, whose fiery rebirth destroyed Thorisan and enslaved the Dark Irons. Faced with this elemental threat, the allied armies halted their advance, unwilling to confront Ragnaros and his destructive forces. The aftermath of the War of the Three Hammers left scars on both kingdoms. Modgud's death tainted Grim Batol with dark magic, rendering it uninhabitable. Modan offered the Wildhammers a place within Ironforge's borders, but they declined and relocated to the peaks of Lordaeron, establishing a new home at Airy Peak. To maintain ties, the Ironforge dwarves constructed the Thandor Span, a massive bridge connecting Khaz Modan to Lordaeron, enabling trade and prosperity between the two kingdoms. In honour of their shared struggle, the sons of Modan and Cardros commissioned great statues at the southern pass in Loch Modan, serving as both a warning to invaders and a reminder of the war. And so, for the next 200 years, the dwarves continued in this state, with the Bronzebeards firmly ruling Ironforge and extending their influence across Dun Morogh and beyond. However, life on Azeroth was on the brink of monumental change. 2 centuries later, the Dark Portal opened, unleashing the Orcish horde upon Azeroth. The First War began in the year we now call Year Zero, and within 3 years the human kingdom of Stormwind had fallen to the horde's onslaught. As the Second War loomed, Ironforge received urgent warnings from the King of Lordaeron about the growing Orcish threat. It wasn't long before Khaz Modan itself came under attack. During the Second War, the Orcish horde launched a devastating campaign across Khaz Modan, targeting both Gnomeregan and Dwarven strongholds. The city of Gnomeregan faced a direct siege, but the Orcs were thwarted by the ingenuity of the Gnomish inventors. After weeks of fruitless assaults, Doomhammer abandoned his siege, leaving the Bleeding Hollow clan, led by Kilrogg Deadeye, to ensure the gnomes remained trapped by maintaining a blockade around the city. Meanwhile, the Bleeding Hollow clan continued their relentless assault on the dwarfs, systematically destroying numerous strongholds throughout their region, but Ironforge held firm against Kilrogg's forces. By the war's end, the Alliance of Lordaeron defeated the Bleeding Hollow clan, liberating Khaz Modan and securing Ironforge's place in the Alliance. Following the victory, King Magni Bronzebeard appointed his younger brother, Modan, as Ironforge's ambassador to Lordaeron. The dwarves' unwavering loyalty to the Alliance was evident during the Third War, with the events of the 20th year proving pivotal for Dun Morogh. As the undead scourge swept across the lands, Ironforge dispatched forces to aid Lordaeron against the growing threat. During this time, King Magni Bronzebeard received devastating news. His brother, Modan, had been killed by Arthas during the prince's quest for Frostmane. I don't think he actually died in the end, but for dramatic purposes, he died. Shortly afterward, High Inquisitor Fairbanks and Alexandros Mograine approached Magni with a plea for help against the Scourge. Seeking to honour Modan and retaliate against Arthas, Magni forged the legendary blade, the Ashbringer, as a counter to Frostmane. Now, with all of this going on within Ironforge, in contrast, the loyalty of the Gnomes was called into question during the Third War. For years, the Gnomes of Gnomeregan had been invaluable allies, supplying advanced weaponry, vehicles, and troops to the Alliance on the warfront. However, following the fall of Lordaeron, the Gnomes abruptly withdrew all aid, leaving their allies puzzled and strained. It was only after the Third War that the truth emerged. So you might wonder, why did the Gnomes suddenly vanish from the war effort during the Third War? And the answer lies in an ancient, persistent, and unsightly problem that had resurfaced. Over the millennia, the sands of time had eroded much of Uldaman. The ancient Titan complex built by the Watcher Ioneia, most of it had been lost, reclaimed by the earth. The dwarves, driven by their insatiable curiosity and a deep, though not fully understood connection to this ancient place, began excavating the site. One fateful day, a group of explorers ventured into the halls of Uldaman, and what they discovered within would forever alter the course of Dwarven history. The dwarves, during their excavations of Uldaman, inadvertently uncovered the ancient stasis chambers of the Troggs, and awakened the long-dormant creatures. Once the distant cousins of their Titan-forged ancestors, the Troggs, like the dwarves and the gnomes, had succumbed to the curse of flesh. Now beings of flesh and blood, these hunched, hairy creatures with sharp claws and foul tempers were hideous shadows of their already hideous former selves. The awakened Troggs attacked with brutal ferocity, slaughtering most of the Dwarven explorers. Only a few survivors managed to escape the carnage and fled back to the safety of Ironforge. Unbeknownst to them, the Troggs had been tunneling beneath the ground, silently following their every step. As the Troggs advanced toward Ironforge, their attention was caught by the sounds emanating from the nearby gnomish city of Gnomeregan. Intrigued by the mechanical whirring and the tinkering noises, they shifted their course, setting their sights on the Techno City. In a swift and devastating invasion, the Troggs stormed Gnomeregan. To avoid pulling Alliance troops away from the critical fight against the Scourge in the north, the leader of the Gnomes, High Tinker Mechagnomes, made the fateful decision that the Gnomes would defend Gnomeregan on their own. For 5 long years, the Gnomes valiantly battled the invading Troggs, but were ultimately overwhelmed. The Troggs, relentless and cunning, bypassed their defences by tunnelling into the engineering quarters. Desperate to turn the tide, High Tinker Mechagnomes agreed to a drastic plan proposed by his advisor, Psychothermoplug. The plan was to flood the lower levels of the city with radiation to eliminate the invaders. Mechagnomes went with it, and the plan backfired. The radiation released not only killed countless gnomes, but also made the surviving Troggs even more violent and dangerous. Nearly 80% of the gnomish population perished within days, while others were tragically transformed into mindless, malevolent leper gnomes, left behind in the ruins of their city. Among the surviving leper gnomes was Psychothermoplug, the very gnome who had devised the plan to flood the city with the toxic radiation. With their city in ruins and uninhabitable, the few surviving gnomes fled to Ironforge, seeking refuge. In the aftermath, debate raged among the gnomes about their next steps. While some urged for an immediate effort to retake the city, Mechagnomes decided instead to focus on supporting the Alliance, leaving the reclamation of their home for another day. By the time the last gnome cast a final glance back at their fallen city, time had marched on, bringing us to the 25th year since the Dark Portal first opened in the Eastern Kingdoms. This marked the year when the heroes of the Alliance were called upon to bring order to the turmoil in Dun Morogh. The Frostmane trolls, seeking to reclaim their ancestral home, had emerged from their caves and strongholds to wage a fierce campaign. Meanwhile, the Troggs ventured beyond the ruins of Gnomeregan, encroaching upon the territories of both the gnomes and the dwarves. Adding to the chaos, rogue leper gnomes sowed havoc where they could, and the region's wildlife, unsettled by the conflict, became increasingly aggressive, with wolves, bears, yetis attacking the travellers. In response, an influx of dwarves and gnomes rallied to defend the region. Despite some initial victories, Dun Morogh remains under siege, and the struggle to secure the land continues to this very day. During this time, King Magni Bronzebeard, ruling over Ironforge, had recently welcomed the gnomes to seek refuge within its halls. He even granted them their own quarter to expand upon. The gnomes and dwarves eventually dispatched a rescue team of adventurers on a daring reconnaissance mission into the toxic halls of Gnomeregan. What they uncovered down there was a dark and chilling truth. And to learn more about that story, you can check out the dedicated tale of the lore of Gnomeregan. A portal is linked in the description below. In the 28th year since the Dark Portal's opening, the gnomes' long-awaited plans to reclaim their city reached a critical moment. After years of preparation, Gelbin Mechagnomes launched Operation Gnomeregan, calling on both the gnomish people and the Alliance for support. Under Mechagnomes' leadership, the Gnomeregan exiles, alongside their Alliance allies, assembled at Steel Grill's depot, the staging ground for the offensive and the production site for their formidable Meccano tanks. Once preparations were complete, Mechagnomes led a bold assault to secure Gnomeregan's airfield, establishing a surface command post as a foothold for their new operation. From there, the forces pressed into the lower tunnels of the city, pushing toward its irradiated heart. However, Thermoplug, the self-proclaimed ruler of Gnomeregan, revealed his final weapon, the Irradiator 3000. As the Alliance forces reached the city's core, Thermoplug activated the new device, flooding the area with deadly radiation. Unable to disarm it in time, Mechagnomes was forced to order a full retreat, teleporting his troops to the surface and sealing off the city once more to allow the radiation to subside. Despite being unable to fully reclaim Gnomeregan, Mechagnomes considered the operation a strategic victory. The gnomes had struck a major blow against Thermoplug's forces and established New Tinkertown, a foothold near the city's gates. The battle to reclaim the city raged on, turning it into a war zone. The Gnomeregan exiles, alongside brave adventurers, clashed with the leper gnomes loyal to Thermoplug, fighting to control their beloved city, piece by piece. In this heated conflict, the G-Team, an elite gnomish task force, played a pivotal role. Working with the adventurers, they carried out daring operations deep within the irradiated halls of Gnomeregan. Their efforts culminated in a decisive strike against Thermoplug, finally eliminating the self-proclaimed ruler and breaking the back of his forces. Now, Gnomeregan and New Tinkertown serves as the starting point for new gnomish adventurers, with quests focused on continuing the fight to drive out any remaining threats and reclaiming their home. As the drums of war echoed through the halls of Gnomeregan, unrest was also brewing in the grand city of Ironforge. Shortly before the Cataclysm, Azeroth entered a period of elemental upheaval. The elements, agitated and chaotic, launched invasions on major cities of both the Alliance and the Horde. In Ironforge, King Magni Bronzebeard personally defended the commons from the elemental onslaught, but the troubling state of the world demanded deeper answers. During an earlier exploration of Uldaman, the Dwarves had uncovered a set of ancient Titan tablets. Believing they held the key to understanding the elemental unrest, King Magni decided to activate a ritual inscribed on the tablets to commune directly with the planet. Magni ventured down into the depths of Old Ironforge, where the ritual would take place. Rather than communing with the planet, the ritual triggered a transformation, binding Magni to the very stone of Azeroth itself. His body turned to shimmering diamond, his form fusing into the heart of Ironforge. Yet, the situation worsened when Magni's estranged daughter, Moira Thorasan, returned to claim the throne, bringing her infant son, heir to both the Bronzebeard and Dark Iron clans. Backed by Dark Iron forces, Moira seized control of Ironforge, holding the city hostage. To prevent further chaos and political collapse, King Varian Wrynn of Stormwind intervened. To balance the power of the warring clans and maintain stability, Varian called for the formation of the Council of Three Hammers. This ruling council, composed of representatives from the Bronzebeard, the Wildhammer and the Dark Iron clans, succeeded Magni and ensured that all dwarves had a voice in the city's future. 2 years later, in the 30th year since the opening of the Dark Portal, while much of Azeroth was captivated by the mysteries of Pandaria, trouble was brewing in Dun Morogh. King Varian Wrynn's scouts uncovered a growing threat. The Zandalari trolls were rallying the Frostmane trolls to attack Ironforge. Seeing an opportunity, Varian believed aiding Ironforge against the trolls would secure additional Dwarven troops for his campaign against the Horde. However, he underestimated the deep mistrust among the three Dwarven clans. When Varian approached the Council of Three Hammers for assistance, both Moradin Bronzebeard and Falstad Wildhammer declined. They feared that if their forces left to fight the Frostmane trolls, Moira Thorasan and the Dark Irons would exploit their absence to seize full control of Ironforge. To his surprise, it was only Moira who stepped forward, pledging the Dark Iron's loyalty to Ironforge, the Council, and the Alliance. Determined to prove her clan's worth, she offered to lead the defence alongside Varian. With the High King, his champions, and the Dark Iron Dwarves at the forefront, the Frostmane assault was repelled, and Ironforge was saved. Upon their return, Moradin and Falstad were overcome with shame for allowing fear and distrust to cloud their judgment. They vowed never again to let suspicion divide the Dwarven clans. 4 years after King Magni Bronzebeard's petrification, in the 32nd year since the opening of the Dark Portal, to the shock of both Moira and advisor Belgrim, Magni awoke, his body now a living, moving statue of shimmering diamond. With a voice like a rumbling mountainslide, he declared that he now spoke for the land itself, a living embodiment of Azeroth. By Dwarven law, as the rightful ruler, Ironforge was his to claim. However, both Moira and Falstad knew that neither the Dark Iron nor the Wildhammer clans would willingly kneel to a Bronzebeard king. When Magni returned to the High Seat, he addressed the Council of Three Hammers directly. He revealed that he had not returned to reclaim the throne, for he was no longer a king, but a servant of Azeroth. His purpose was to deliver a grave warning. The Burning Legion was returning, and all of Ironforge's people, Bronzebeards, Wildhammers and Dark Irons alike, must unite to face the coming threat. Without delay, Magni announced that he would leave Ironforge to spread this warning to the rest of the Alliance, departing to fulfill his new role as Azeroth's voice. Magni's warning proved true. Not long after, the Burning Legion launched another invasion, and they used Dun Morogh as one of their key staging points. The Legion struck the snowy mountains with brutal force. Though the battle was fierce and the odds overwhelming, the united strength of the Dwarves and their allies ensured that Dun Morogh would not fall without a fight, and eventually the Legion was driven out of the region, allowing the snow-capped mountains to return to a semblance of peace. And ever since the Legion was driven out of Dun Morogh, the region has remained relatively peaceful. Only the minor nuisances of Troggs, trolls and wandering beasts disturb its quiet. Ironforge still stands proudly as the heart of Dwarven heritage, successfully governed by the Council of Three Hammers, a full-circle resolution to the long-standing conflict between the clans so many years ago. Meanwhile, the quest to reclaim Gnomeregan continues. Though progress has been made, the toxic radiation and lingering threats still prevent the gnomes from fully restoring their city. But as we close the chapter on this war-torn yet deniably cozy zone, remember, in Azeroth, peace is but a fleeting breath. And even the mightiest strongholds of iron and stone must prepare for the storm that always looms on the horizon. The mountains of Dun Morogh have stood strong for generations, and will they continue to endure the challenges that arise?